build up and then, I don't know, I hear something, I see something, somebody says something, and then I just come a puddle.
I understand completely.
Yeah.
I've been where you are, and I pray for you and think of you often.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm hanging in there, and I mean, everybody has been so good. I guess the hard part is I'm still angry that, Jim and I, we just always assumed we'd live to be as old as our parents because his mom was 97, my parents were 94.
Wow.
Thought, sure. And, I said, okay, we're going to beat them in years because they were both married over 60 years. And I went, well, we're going to beat them. And it's like, dang, we didn't even get to 50. So that's the only part I think that still makes me angry when I think about it, that, I just feel like it was so short-lived. But, I think what's got me through is hearing from everybody. And I love it when people talk about Jim and it's like, okay, you guys knew how brilliant and ridiculous and silly and weird the man was. And you accepted him for all that. And it just, it warms the cockles of my heart that you liked him.
He's one of a kind. There's no doubt about it. One of a kind.
Oh my gosh, Simon.
Simon, I'm so glad you got on.
Hey.
Her audio is connecting.
Oh, she's not yet.
Hi, Simon.
Hi, Simon.
Hi, Simon.
I forgot the hat.
We're going to have to ask you to leave. I'm sorry.
I almost came without one because I don't have any silly hats, but my dad bought me this funky little thing last week, and so it works. You look great. Hi.
Everybody looks great. Wow.
Really?
Simon, how old are your? Oh, there's Sandy.
She's ready for Alaska.
Yeah.
She's got her curly W jacket on.
That's right.
I didn't know if they were headphones and you were captioning, or are they earmuffs, or what are they?
They're my beaver earmuffs.
Oh. Can you get closer to the camera so we can see the detail?
Oh,
Turn your head.
Lovely.
Nice.
Mike got them for me from Alaska.
Oh,
Very
funny.
wow.
Are they for captioning?
I can't hear anything when they're on.
So no. Yes, it would be bad for
The
captioning.
answer is no, Joe. Yeah.
So, Simon, how old are your boys?
They're 14 and 13.
Oh my goodness.
Reno, oh my gosh, are you still living in Virginia? Because the last time I was at your house, you only had one, and he was a baby.
I remember. Karen, that was forever. It's so good to see you.
It's great to see you.
I'm still in Virginia. I'm still in Ashburn. Still in that same house, Karen. So
Wow. That's awesome. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, this is so fun.
I know. It's been forever. My gosh. Oh, Tom.
Isn't that great?
I love it.
I just can't move my head too much because it'll I
I
lose
know I was
reception.
sweating. I have to let go of my hat. No, it looks good. I love that. Did you make it?
No, I have to. My wife made it for me, so I have to
Okay.
give her credit. Yes.
Okay.
Well, our compliments to her.
You told her you wanted a kiss, and that's what you got, Tom.
Sometimes you lose audio in these Zoom calls, and
Right.
what happened? Yes.
Yeah.
So are you
Oh my
remarried,
gosh.
Tom?
I am. I just got married last October. Yes.
Oh, congratulations.
congratulations.
Good for you.
We finally got tired of waiting out the pandemic, so we did a micro wedding, and it was much cheaper actually. And
Yeah.
plus, we were concerned that by the time they finally release everybody back into the wild, everybody's going to be snapping up everything, and it's going to be hard
Yeah.
to
True.
get reservations. And so we said, you know what, we'll just do it now. And then,
Good for you.
Good plan.
actually, the thing that took the longest was just getting the license, because we had to set up a virtual thing for appointment for the license, and that we had to schedule a month in advance. Everything else went much quicker. So
Wow.
Wow.
That's great. And you're in Virginia, right?
yes, I live in Alexandria.
Well,
I was
can't
expecting a-
wait to- Go ahead.
Sorry. I was expecting a few more people and I want to wait for Trevor and then I want to have us all share stories.
Yeah, like
I
I
know we
said,
all have a
I'm not
bunch.
sure. I'm not sure if Trevor will be able to make it because he was working and he didn't get off. He thought the earliest he got off was 2:30. So, unfortunately, I thought it would turn out to be a good weekend for the kids, but it's not.
Well, I'm recording it now, so you can share it with them later.
Okay. I just I just got a text from Sally. She probably won't like it, but her message is, "Shit, coming."
Well, hopefully there was punctuation between the two words.
Yeah. Yes, there was.
Good for her. She's
There she
Jim's
is.
daughter.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Molly.
Hi, Molly.
Hey, Molly.
Hi.
Hi.
Well, from the soccer field.
Wow. Hey, Matt.
Yes, we're in the finals right now, on our way to another one in just a moment.
Wow.
Wow.
That is great. Oh, I remember those days of hanging out on the
But I-
soccer field on Saturday mornings, freezing and,
Yeah. And the amount of horrible weather that we've had this year with the rain and the snow and the ice. And it's like,
Tell us about your trip to Disney World, Mary.
it was really nice. It was, I think, kind of cathartic for everyone. Wouldn't you agree, Molly? It was like a little sad and bittersweet, getting started. But then it was nice listening to the kids, kind of reference Jim. And, we went on all of his favorite rides. The funniest thing is one of the rides we went on, he always liked the Jungle Cruise. I don't know if you guys have ever been to Disney, either one of them.
yes.
And, it's a canned, campy dialogue, right? We all know it by heart. So Disney was really good. They had it set up so that, there were only X amount of people allowed on the boat. So our little small group went on first. And there were two other little groups. And, we're chuckling and we're laughing and we're going along with the dialogue. And I kept looking at the two groups across the way going, do you not understand what he's saying? It's campy, it's stupid, it's funny, especially when you get to the joke about the backside of water. Like they're just sitting there going, huh? It's like people need to come to Disney with us and they'll truly understand what it's like to be at Disney.
Yeah.
So, but it was fun. Oh, there's Sally. Hello, Sally.
Hi, Sally.
Hi. Sorry, I'm late.
Shit.
That's okay. I gave them your message that you texted me, and the first thing they said was, "Did she put a comma in between?"
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
That's great.
Anyway, so it's not. It's so good to see all you guys. It's like, oh wow, it's funny. I don't know if you guys ever knew. Jim and I met at Disneyland, right?
Yep.
And we were both foremen, and then we got married, and I'm thinking, he's just going to be a foreman for the rest of his life, because he had already changed majors, I don't know, at least 4 times, and then finally decided he didn't want to go to college. Okay, fine. So I thought, all right, this is the way it's going to be. He'll be happy. And then one day he came home, and I don't know, we had seen a magazine or something, and there was this little blurb about being a court reporter. And he said, I think I want to do this. And we had a long talk because it was expensive, to put a lot of commitment into that. So, we finally agreed that, okay, you're going to do this. This is not going to be, in 3 months, we'll have wasted a lot of money for you to say, oh no, well, I'll try something else later on. So he did it. And it's like, that was it. That's what he needed to find. He did it without any problems. Tested out the first time, came in second in the state of California.
Wow. You never told me that.
Yeah, he loved being a court reporter. And then when he started doing the house, at NCI, he found that really fascinating because that was like, okay, this is another aspect. And it's like, okay, we're doing something in NCI. I'm not a court reporter anymore, but it was like this. And then he took on the House and he liked it. And then, of course, when he got the job at the Senate, that was like, okay, I have arrived. So, it's like he found so many good people along the way. and to be able to interact. And even like, all those years ago when he wrote the book in Spanish, which I still have, I kept it. I thought, I'm not gonna read this. And it was just like, it was like, I don't know, like a miracle that this thing that he found and he loved. And
Yeah.
so,
Well, nobody had Jim's vocabulary. I mean, if there could be a perfect career for Jim, it would
That
have
was
been
it.
doing what he was doing.
It was it.
Yeah.
Let's go back and take it through his career. Jack was there in the 80s.
yeah, yeah.
Hey,
Jack-
I have to get some tissue. You know me, I'm a leaker.
Jack, will you share your experiences with Jim in the 80s when you guys were pioneers with computers?
Oh, sure. That was a really cool time with him. We first started working together in about 1980, as soon as Jim and Mary, late 80, early 81.
Yeah.
And then Jim got his computer, I would say in somewhere around January of 84, thereabouts. It was the Denograph Cimarron. That thing was as big as a room, And then I got mine about 3 months later, and we would go back and forth because things would go awry with one, but it was easy to drive from my home over to his. And one thing I really recall about it is he went to school on the West Coast, I went on the East Coast, but our writing styles were almost like identical.
Wow.
And we both used a lot of briefs. And so he'd come over to my place if he was having a problem, if I was having a printer problem, I might go to his house and we would talk shop and drink coffee at night. And we would just get to talking and it would just go. And then on occasion, we were in his basement. That's where he had his office.
Yeah.
And on occasion, Mary came to the top of the steps and says, Jim, it's such and such a time. Okay. And so we would say, we were going to stop. And then he would say, how do you write debacle? And then, and it turned out we had both picked the same freak form to write debacle in one stroke. And that's why I said we were very similar. But then I would usually head home about the time that Gail called and said, Jack, where are you? It's such and such a time. And so, but that happened many a time. Whenever go back and forth with one another.
And how much did that computer cost in the 1980s? I know it was exorbitant.
$35,000.
Wow.
It was extraordinary. The next one was like, that was 84. I've only kept it probably about 4 years. And then I bought up to the first PC, I guess it was, next level. And that was just like a fourth of the price or something. Maybe not a fourth, but a whole lot less.
If I had a dime for every time Jim said to me, you write that in how many strokes?
Yeah, exactly. Why would you want to write it like that?
Yeah, he and I were always comparing strokes and looking for ways to write. Well, it's just what we do, 4 and 5 syllable words in one stroke. Find a way.
Right.
They call it shorthand for a reason.
Exactly.
Yes,
Exactly.
Jim wanted it to be really short.
Yeah.
As short as possible. I'll
Anyway.
pick up from there because Jim showed up on our doorstep, so to speak, on the 15th floor at NCI in 1990,
Yeah.
unannounced, with a resume in his hand. And I know we're all looking at each other going, who does this? Well, he's here. We might as well test him, right? So it was the best decision we ever made.
Definitely.
And then once he started working, you looked around his desk and you wondered, how many kids does he have? Because he loved to put the pictures up from the school pictures every single year. And it took a little while to go, oh, let me look. Oh, yeah. Okay. I see. Molly, Trevor. Yeah. Each year. Yeah. They're getting older. Okay. So and then there's the baby Sally. Sally, you were a year old, I think, when he came. And I always remember baby Sally.
Right.
And I just loved those pictures that he had up on the cork board there by his desk.
Yeah, even his office downstairs, he had a bulletin board in front of his desk and they were always plastered with the kids' pictures.
I remember you told me that there were years maybe you didn't want to get the school pictures because you didn't think they were great or something, but he had to have them, right?
Oh, yeah.
Every single year.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things I always did with the kids is, and I don't know if you guys did it, is I always had a memory box for each of the kids. And so over the years, I would collect like their school pictures or the report cards or some special, project they had done at school, whether it's art or they wrote a little story or stuff like that. And so when they all got old enough and went off on their own, it's like I gave them that and they went, what are we supposed to do with this? Those are my favorite memories. You can do whatever you want. But I mean, everybody going back, it was like, yeah. Jim wanted to.
Everybody keeps asking about how you're doing with, the sentimental part of everything that you're doing with mom right now. And I go, oh, sometimes she just brushes it off. And then other times she hands me a box full of every report card I ever had. I'm not really sure.
Yeah. And I mean, for years, I was lucky because since I worked at the same school that they went to, it was like the art teachers, instead of sending the stuff home with the kids, would bring it down to my office. And,
Nice.
And then, they'd give me the frames and it's like my whole office was just covered with, like one year Sally did quilt work in 6th grade and all their paintings. And, when I forget what grade is, 5th or 6th grade, when they do the clay work, and I had all the little houses and the dragons and the whatever.
That's great.
It's like, it was the best art in that ever,
Is it true that you were engaged before you ever had your first date?
Yeah, it is.
Well, no, we weren't really engaged.
Did he ask you to marry him?
No, we're weird, yes. Jim had been engaged. He had actually been engaged. He'd given a ring to Kathy. And
didn't know that.
At Disneyland. And I don't know what happened, but one day our lead, Paulette, had said, okay, don't say anything. Don't say anything. What? He says, Jim had a bad day. They broke up. It's like, okay. At that point, I didn't even know her name. I'd never met her or anything like that. It's like, okay. So then he was single. And at some point, we always did like things as a big group when we got to know each other. You would like this. We had a flag football team. Now, you want to raise your hand if you think Jim was on the flag football team? No, but Jim started a cheerleading team. So he was cheerleaders, and we were the Bell Peppers, And then one year he decided at the Plaza Inn, we were going to have an Academy Awards. So for a couple of years, we had Academy Awards. So he came up with all these wild ideas. So we all got to know each other and stuff like that. And it was one of those, I don't know if it was subliminal. I was actually dating somebody. And then one of our friends at Disneyland was getting married, and she asked me to be one of the bridesmaids. And the day of the wedding, the guy I was then seeing, we've been having problems, and it was just like I knew it wasn't going to work anymore. And he said, well, can I drive you to the reception? I want to talk to you. I was like, okay, fine. So all the way down, we talked, and I finally went, this isn't going to work. We're just not meant to be together. Fine. So he left, went in, we're at the reception, and Anita got married and had her reception in her parents' backyard because it was beautifully landscaped. And so they had the buffet underneath the patio cover. And I was on one side getting something to eat, and Jim was on the other side. And he just stood there and looked at me and said, will you marry me? And I don't know what came out over me, but I just went, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
That was it. And then we dated.
Wow.
Yeah. So I don't know what it was. I don't know if it's because over the, those couple of years, we've just gotten to know each other so well. And I just knew that this was right, but it was like, will you marry me? Yes.
We always joke that my mom sort of set a precedence for us, for the kids. My brother's the only one who did it normally because he was with his wife for they dated for like 5 years before they got engaged. But my sister was with her husband for, I think, 2 or 3 months before they got engaged. And I was with my husband for, technically we weren't really together, and then we got engaged. So my mom just sort of set the scene. This is how we roll.
So now you know what our family is like.
What you want.
Yeah. So, and it's funny because everybody kept saying, Jim kept going, oh, I'm going to get married. And they kept going, oh, you are? We didn't know that. And I go, well, who? Mary? Mary who? And they said, well, Mary Ann. And they go, no, you're not. Like, because we had never dated. We had never actually physically gone out of, oh, would you like to go to the movies with me tonight or something like that? And they went, what? So it kind of took everybody by surprise. Yeah, it was nice. And the one nice thing is when we got married, the day we got married, our supervisors were really great because, I mean, they really pared down so that everybody could come to the wedding, which is really nice of them. So we had a lot of good friends from the Plaza Inn there. So, those were good years. I enjoyed working at Disney. And, if we hadn't moved back here, I would have stayed with Disney. He would have continued on, but then I don't think he would have found NCI / Congress / the
right.
and the where he needed to be for his language, I don't know where he learned it. Well, okay. I hope you guys all know that this is someone who would read the encyclopedia when he was a kid because he thought that was interesting. If you read the encyclopedia as a kid,
why am I not surprised?
And it's not surprising. He also wrote an English theory, and I was proofreading that theory, and I think part of what he did to just test to be sure if I was really proofreading his sentences and paragraphs was put some very colorful sentences and paragraphs in there. And there were a number of times where I'd say, Jim, I don't think this is something that you could publish or that somebody could bring to school. And he'd say, oh, you don't think so? And it could be because of the color, or it could be because I spent hours with a dictionary trying to figure out what on earth that said. It's so incredible with words. And one of my favorite things is his letters. Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh. I know. I just love the letters. I would read them for months afterwards.
And he once told me that that you should never just sign a card without writing something in it. And he's made me feel so guilty that since then, if I can't, if it's at Christmas, I'm not too busy anymore, but when I thought I was too busy and couldn't send cards without writing in them, I wouldn't write something. I mean, I wouldn't send the cards because he said there's no use in doing that at all.
Right.
My sister-in-law is an English teacher, and I always tell people that by far Jim is the most brilliant person with the English language I have ever met. Like any English teacher or anyone else, just mind-boggling, really.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny, for all the years I worked at Hutchison, it got to the point where it's like somebody would say something about, I don't understand, what does this word mean, or what is this? And I went, oh, don't go to the library. Let's just call Jim. See, I knew he would. So it got to the point they say, can we call Jim? I have a question.
Marianne, what was Jim's Spanish background? Because we were all amazed that he wrote this theory, but he always said, I don't speak Spanish. Well, obviously he understood it well enough to write a theory. So I'm wondering what's the background?
He took Spanish in high school, just like I did. And I think both of us were the same. It's like, we understood it, but we didn't speak it. I would have been better if I'd gone to Mexico for, in school or something to be immersed in it. And I probably would have been okay with it. But he decided to take Spanish. And I think one of his majors in college, it might've only been first semester, he wanted to be a Spanish major. That was it. And during NCI, when he took that on, it was like, he hadn't done anything in Spanish in a billion years.
Wow.
And then at one point, he decided he wanted to learn to speak Spanish again. So he took the, what's that online?
Rosetta Stone.
Huh?
Rosetta Stone.
So he did Spanish. And after that, he said, I think I'll read Harry Potter in Spanish.
Wow.
Of course he did.
It's not like he was a speaker or he had continued it from high school, but I think like anything else, it just stuck up here.
Yeah.
It went beyond language, because when they first started doing the house captioning at NCI and we wanted a more efficient way to review people's work. He went home and he wrote a computer program for it and just showed up at NCI with a computer program one day. Just
Well, the
amazing.
reviews, I'm going to address the reviews, so don't go too far down the road on reviews.
That's a perfect segue for Sue. Do you want to tell us about those reviews?
Yeah, because that's my my memory always of Jim. I'll thank him forever, but the computer program, of course, but you know, there's a little translate rate on your screen. It'll say your tran rate was 98% or whatever. So, you know, I was proud, 98%. And then, you know, we did the printout and, you know, handed it to each other, swapped our reviews, and man, it was tough because when Jim had the review, he just tick, 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 tick. Everything was, you know, just like 2 laws. He found everything in the reviews. So it wasn't just a tran rate. So all of a sudden you thought, I'm so good, I got 99%. Next thing you know, you're down to like 92. You know, and I will thank him forever for making me a better writer, a better reporter, and maybe for putting a few words into my vocabulary. My dad was an English teacher too, but which sometimes I think when Jim did it might have made me a little bit, you know, inside angry, because my dad was always telling me, Susan, that's not the way, Susan. And so Jim did exactly like my dad did it. But it was so worth it for me. And he, you know, he taught me so much. But anyways, the reviews, yeah, he was tough. Sandy remembers. I know you do.
If it couldn't be a full error, he wanted to find a way to at least count it as a half error.
Exactly. Yes. Yes, he did. Oh my God. Oh my God. And I used to laugh at the time too. I did. Jim, I'm just laughing at you right now because you're ridiculous.
But you know, smart as he was never condescending. He was always funny. He was, Rayanne, as you said, he was very silly, and he could roll his eyes. And if he ever made fun of someone, it was only of himself.
Yes.
I mean, well, he might have sometimes said things that the kids did to make fun of him. He never like acted like he was smarter than everybody else, like he really was.
No.
Just that dry drawl, kind of just dry sense, you know, just would come out with this deadpan expression and just the kind of quietest sentence under his voice, or that just I would double over. I mean, he just could make me laugh harder than anybody.
He would, when he was writing, if we were doing the news or whatever, he could sort of comment on what he was captioning on without actually saying anything. You know, he would just be writing and he would just kind of look over and do a little eye roll, and you knew what his opinion was, you know.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. He was also the king of puns.
Yes.
And luckily my kids took after them in that, you know, and it's like, I think the whole Hall family, they're just very punny people. And it's just like, it's like over the years, it's like, really? You know, and now the kids, they do some of the puns that Jim used to say, you know. So, okay, all right, this is good. This is good. So.
Steve, what about your training stories? I know you have some.
Yeah, I was thinking of two while you were talking. One that, Tammy, what you said made me think of something. When I first started in training, coming from a court reporting background and having done some volunteer captioning with the group in New Hampshire, but really needed to be completely retrained. And I did what a lot of court reporters do for how to write the states of the US, and you just double stroke usually the postal code for the state. And Jim taught me that gives you 2 chances to make an error when you double stroke. So that got me to cut down to 1 stroke. But I asked him if he had a short way of doing all the states. He said, oh yeah, I have a list that I'll print up and I'll give it to you. So he did later in the day, and I went through, and they all made perfect sense, of course, and I entered every one of them. And then I'm practicing the news later that day, and they said something about Montana, and I had the list in front of me, and he had left Montana off the list. So I went to him and I said, Jim, there's a problem with your list. And he looked at me and said, Montana. I said, yes. He said, I left it off because I wanted to make sure you actually used the list. So then he told me how to caption Montana. So I think of Jim anytime I caption the word Montana, but the other one, this one, he actually swore me to secrecy, and he said, you cannot tell anyone until I'm no longer here. Now, that was good until Gail and I were on a river cruise in Chicago about 5 years ago. And there might have been a couple glasses of wine involved, and I spilled the beans to Gail. And since then, I think I've told Sandy this too, but I was in training at NCI. This was probably 2 months into my training, and I could not get the word obstacle to come out. I would just, every time I wrote it, I would make a fingering error. So I asked Jim, I said, how do you write the word obstacle? Do you have a brief for it? He said, I do. I said, well, will you share it with me? And he did the I thing that you're talking about. He said, only if you don't tell anyone until I'm no longer here. I said, okay, I promise. I said, what is your brief for obstacle? He said, it's S long I B T. I said, Jim, I think you misunderstood. The word is obstacle. He said, yeah, S long I B T. I said, I don't get it. He said, you know Tom Seibert here at NCI? Anytime I try to do anything, he's the biggest obstacle and I can't get it done. I adopted that word, and every time I write the word obstacle, thank goodness everything's remote now, I just break out into the biggest laugh. And I've shared that with others. And I think, Gail, you even said that you may have adopted it, but every time I think of obstacle, it makes me laugh.
Gosh.
That's causing me to make up a whole list of other briefs with people's names.
Yeah, idiot would be assigned to somebody, and
I love that. I love that.
That is great.
It's great. There's so many of us on a call that actually understand what that means, that we knew him.
Yeah. And I'll just one last thing, Mary, when Tom was talking about the eye roll. Remember, Mary, the last time I came out to visit Jim, and when he was still at home, and we all knew that, it was coming toward the end. And so we're there, and he was there, he was interactive, but he wasn't speaking very much.
No.
And I said something to him and he didn't hear it. And you said to him, Jim, Steve just said something you didn't hear. Put in your hearing aid. And so he looked at me, he grabbed the hearing aid, you looked away, and he looked over at me and he gave me this. I have a journal someone gave me 5 years ago. I came home and immediately I wrote the passage about how Mary just tried to tell him, put in your hearing aid. And I said, the old Jim is still in there. That eye roll.
Absolutely.
Like the one you always saw.
Absolutely. The way he just rolled his eyes or raised his eyebrows, you knew he understood.
Right.
Yeah.
So Sandy, I think most people know Sandy was considered Jim's work wife.
Yeah.
So I know Sandy has some stories.
Oh, ones that I want to share with us. I mean, he was wonderful to work with. He made me think of a new way of doing so many things. I would have just done it my own way, but I enjoyed his input on everything. And I will say, there was talking about the briefs. We would talk about briefs too. And back when you had answering machines, I came home from something once and my whole message was just brief suggestions. And and so Al just doesn't understand a voicemail like your message on the answering machine like that. But I totally understood where he was coming from, and we just enjoyed sharing things like that. But he was also great because his kids were a few years older than my kids. And so with all the time that we'd work together, there would be times that I just would be saying something going on with my children, and he was always really great with the advice about like to just chill out. It's all great. Don't sweat all the stuff. And because I would be the tendency to maybe get worked up over a bunch of little things, and he just always kept on the right track in that way too.
Yeah. You guys remember in jury charges, they used to talk about, the reasonably prudent person. And that's what I always thought of Jim as, like common sense, down to earth. And I just loved, I was so lucky his office was next to mine. And every day we'd have a conversation, you know, maybe just a couple minutes or maybe longer. And I would just love to hear his opinion and his take on things that were just so down to earth and common sense. And, you know, it extended, I think most people know that I credit Jim with my turkey gravy recipe because you know, this is the kind of thing I'd say to him, Jim, do you have a turkey gravy recipe that's really good? You know, because it's just not working for me. And he says, yeah, it's just science. And darn if it wasn't, you know, it's like, okay, you take 4 cups of fat and you take a 1/4 cup of flour and you make a roux, and then you take the juices. If you don't have enough juices, you add the water that you did the giblets in and you put it all in at once. And you stir and you stir and you stir and you think nothing's ever going to happen. And then all of a sudden, voila, you've got gravy. So that's the kind of thing that I loved to be able to talk to him about. And like you said, Sandy, with the kids, you know, because he had 2 girls and a boy. So, you know, he was an experienced dad. And I always loved getting his take on that.
When we were little, no, when I was little, I was briefly convinced for a period of time that my dad 100% had some other family with this Sandy lady. And when I eventually told him about that later in life, and it's just, he just worked, you know, he worked really, really hard and his hours were like, you know, strange. And when I eventually told him that later in life, he just laughed and said, I already had to pay for you guys. Do you think I want to pay for another family?
Sounds like him. You know, one of his big family advice things that I took to heart, and it really is the best thing you can say, is we were talking about kids and them being messy and having messy rooms, and how as they get older, you know, you've got enough to try to battle with them over, let alone their messy rooms. And he said, just shut the door. Like, why fight over a messy room? Shut the door. You don't have to look at it. You don't have to live in there. I thought, yeah, why can't I just shut that door?
Common sense advice.
Well, this is why Jim was in the basement. Sally knows. If we only had a partially finished basement, and you know, he decided he wanted to work in the basement. And it's like, I look in the cupboard, I'm going, where are the mugs? Like that's where they were. So at one point, we actually bought him a mug that said mold experiment growing. And he would bring up, you know, like a dozen mugs in the dishwasher. And I'd say, you know, we're putting the trash out tonight. Why don't you bring up your trash? Well, he'd take a trash bag down. And I don't know, it might be a month later, he'd bring up 4 bags of trash. You know, so that kind of goes with the just shut the door. I don't want to.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, his office might have been really neat at work, but it was not neat at home.
It wasn't.
It was not neat at work.
It was not.
It was a total mess.
I mean, this is when he cooked. He was, I mean, he was a good cook. All right, fine, whatever, you know. But he would like use pot. Oh no, this isn't the right pot. Nope. Oh, wait a minute, I need a bigger bowl. And you know, we always had it, whoever cooked, the other person did the cleanup. And I'm going, I think I'm getting the wall end of the deal here, you know? I mean, I don't know if you guys, he took on many things. At one point he thought, I want to paint. So we got all the stuff to do oil painting, and he painted for about a year or so. And then that kind of faded out. And then he said, I want to make yogurt. So we got all the stuff to make yogurt. Well, that went on for a while. Then he thought, I want to make bread. So we got all the stuff to make bread. So
the bread thing lasted a while.
That did. Yeah. So, and then, you know, he decided he wanted to do South Beach. Yeah. Okay, fine. You know, so
I remember.
He always found things. Oh, and then he got into birds. He loved his birds, you know, and so we had the books and the binoculars and the bird feeders and, you know, all that
and
good
then
stuff.
Photography too, wasn't
And
it?
photography,
yeah.
And, you know, this is the hard part. We went to Disney World. Ask us how many pictures we have.
No.
Between everybody, maybe a dozen, because Jim was the photographer. He always went, stand over here. I want to take a picture, you know? Oh, here, we got to take a picture, you know? And it's like, at one point I told the kids, I said, the one thing I want at Disney World is I just want a big group shot. I don't care where we are. I want all of us together. Do you think we ever got it? No, because we never thought to, we got to get everybody together so we can take the picture. And all of a sudden it was Saturday and we were getting ready to leave. And it's like,
I did take several pictures of other people taking pictures though, which Dad would have appreciated.
we did like that, yes. We always had pictures of him taking a picture of somebody else taking the picture,
Oh,
but
funny.
taking a picture of each other, with their cameras.
My goodness. How many grandkids are there now?
I am very lucky. I have 4 girls and 2 boys.
My dad called them the 6 perfect grandchildren, proper noun style.
So the oldest will be, I can't believe it, 15 in April.
Wow.
And the
Wow.
2 boys just turned 4. So yeah, it's been grand. I mean, it's like, Jim and I always thought when we had grandkids, it's like, forget the kids, they're the best things in sliced bread.
Right, Sally.
No.
It's fine. We know. My mom also says that if any of us ever get divorced, she's keeping her in-laws and so it's fine. We're used to it.
Yeah. So.
Sounds like you and Jim had similar senses of humor.
Who, Jim and I?
Yes.
I think he just kind of grew on me. So I have to say though, Sally has his writing ability. She's very gifted in that. So, and she actually did the last Christmas letter that we did because, at that point, Jim
Right.
would. And, she just looked at the ones he had and did it. And we used to do just cards for many years. And we were here back in Virginia. And one year, I don't know whatever happened, I can't even remember now, we didn't get any Christmas cards out. And the following year, I told Jim, I said, we have to do a Christmas letter. We got to tell people we're still alive. And the Christmas letter was born, and I thought he was just going to write, some nice little thing at that time.
Uncle Herkimer.
Yeah. Well, then, yeah. So we had Aunt Millie, Uncle Vern, then we got Cousin Herkimer, but it was like, the first letters he did were, I still have them. They're on pin-fed printer paper.
Yep.
That we sent out. And I mean, I would start nagging him around the beginning of November. And then somewhere after Thanksgiving, he would start to percolate. Think about it. And then if I was really lucky, he would get it to me right before Christmas break at school so that I could get it printed out and mailed out, And it's like, and all of a sudden he would just do it in one night. And then it was like, you would just laugh because it's like, how did you come up with this? I don't understand, So
it would be one of the things that would just make me laugh out loud so hard. Like you can go for a long time without like having just a deep, deep belly laugh. And I would get that letter and I would just laugh hysterically. It was so clever always.
Yeah. And I think, we would laugh over because we think, they really don't care about us. What everybody wanted to know was, what about Aunt Millie? What about Uncle Vern? Oh, hey, what's happening with Cousin Herkimer? So, and then for years, there was that Facebook game that everybody played, Farmville, I think it was.
Yeah.
So there is a profile for Aunt Millie, Uncle Vern, and Cousin Herkimer on Facebook.
And Horatio, he made up some extra ones because he needed more friends.
That's right. Horatio. Yeah.
That
And
is
people thought
terrific.
they were really part of our family. No. So, but I'm glad you guys had silly stories too. I mean, when we worked at Disneyland, it was great because we'd get new people and he'd go, I need you to go over to the Plaza Pavilion and I need a left-handed coffee pot. I should go over and get a left-handed coffee pot, but I mean, people already knew what Jim was like, so they'd give him. Or he'd say, yeah, you need to go over to New Orleans Square and go to the employee cafeteria because I need a can of condensed steam. And they come back and he goes, where's the condensed steam?
When we were in Disney a couple of weeks ago, so my lifelong best friend and her partner and their son came with us this time too. And when we were there, her partner Brian said something about a left-handed coffee pot. And I instantly thought of Dad and I said, there's no such thing as a left-handed coffee pot, Brian. And he showed me the coffee pot. And if you held it in the right hand, you couldn't see the numbers and the lines. But if you held it in your left hand, you could see everything. And I went, oh my God, it's real.
funny. I don't know. You know what? Maybe it was real all those years ago. Yeah. But, you know, I should have known then what I was in for. Yeah.
Right.
Took a while to figure it out.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's just like when we moved back here. I mean, our good friends that had worked with us at Disneyland, Rick got an internship under the Carter administration. So, you know, this goes back to the 70s. So they moved back here. And then we thought, you know, Jim had never been back east. And we thought, okay, let's go and visit, you know, we'll take a vacation back there. So we came back in the fall of 1980. And I actually brought my mother with me and my Molly. She was like not quite a year old. And we flew into Philly. So I left my mom with her sisters and I left Molly up there. And we came down by Greyhound bus and spent like a couple of days with Rick and Jackie. And we went to Williamsburg and DC and blah, 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 blah. And he decided he liked it. And he decided to call some court reporting agencies. Ron Johnson's was one of them. And the first thing they said was, well, when do you want to start? So, you know, he was excited and we went, okay. So we went back home. Oh, so we went out with a realtor here, bought a house, put a deposit down, went back home and sold our house and moved.
Wow.
Yeah, we do things on whims. What can I say?
You probably get that from cousin Herkimer.
I think that's it. It could be, yes. Well, I don't know. Cousin Herkimer is really wrapped up in his fruitcake, you know.
I had an aunt who used to start her Christmas letters with the most outrageous thing, except she was being truthful. And the best one that I kept, I still have it, was, hope you and yours will have a wonderful holiday. We won't. And then she proceeded to explain why, you know. So I said, I am never getting rid of this letter. So.
Wow, what a way to just bring your holiday down.
Right.
Ho, ho, ho. Right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
my
funny.
gosh.
Yeah. So, but you know, it's been good. We, I don't think we did get a, what do you call it? A headstone for Jim. And in true Halt fashion, it is from the Haunted Mansion at Disney.
No.
Hitchhiking Ghosts. Yes, and his garden flag is the hitchhiking ghost. So you can kind of tell where our family goes.
Perfect.
Oh, yeah.
That's great.
Great.
Love it. I thought I was going to be crying from crying, but I'm crying from laughing.
Teresa, I know Jim was special to you in training. Do you want to share anything?
Well, yeah, I guess the start of me and Jim was when you were out on maternity leave, Darlene, when I came to interview, and I wasn't a very good writer. I wrote Sten Ed theory, you know. If anybody knows about Sten Ed theory, we write one more stroke than is necessary for every word.
Oh my gosh. Jim probably talked more about the Sten Ed theory than any other theory out there.
Yeah, I can interrupt there just really quickly. This is so Jim. I loved what he did. He analyzed an hour of someone writing Sten Ed theory. And he said, do you know that you came back with extra strokes for endings 600 times in 1 hour?
I think
so. If you were writing, if you were writing 4 hours a day, you were writing 2,400 extra. That's the kind of detail and precision he would have when he was trying to analyze something.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what I tell people to this day if they have Sten Ed. Go, well, let me tell you about this analysis this man did.
Yeah, I haven't lost all my endings, but Jim changed the way I wrote completely. But so I actually had hurt my back. I flew from Arizona. I crapped on the test. I just did a horrible job on the testing because I have massive anxiety. So then Karen and Jim and I went to lunch at, what was that Thai place, Steve?
Usara's.
Usara, our favorite lunch place. Oh my God, we must have gone there 1,000 times.
Yep.
Every time we could possibly squeeze an interview in, we went to Busara.
And I had a lot less, I guess, restraint than I have now. Then, but we're eating and talking, and I reach over and fork a piece of something off of Jim's plate and put it in my mouth. And Karen and Jim looked at me, and they both kind of shook their head, like, "Yeah, I think she'll do." And then he went back to Karen and said, you know, Karen's like, "We can't really hire her." And Jim's like, "Oh, I'll figure something out."
Oh.
And so he hired me and changed my life, you know, in more ways than one. But yeah, Jim and I had a very special relationship, mostly because I was a woman child when I came to NCI. I was kind of pretty immature. But anyway, I would make, you know, big deals out of everything. I remember Steve once saying to me, you know, "You make a mountain out of a molehill." And that's my job in life. But Jim always said that that was part of my charm. Everything that I would do that was stupid, he'd say, "T, that's a part of your charm."
Oh, that's so sweet.
So, but I absolutely have the career I have today, and you know, couldn't have been the writer that I am without him, and I miss him so much. But he's just always there. So like today, I wasn't going to be able to come, and I get a text like 5 minutes before the group started, and my church service was like, "Hey, we're going to cancel today's captioning."
Yay!
So here I am.
Nice.
Thanks,
I'm glad.
Jim.
And Gail, you trained with Jim just briefly in person, right? And then it was remote, I seem to remember.
Yeah, well, the first time I met Jim was when I came to interview, and we went out to lunch, and he got there late, and everybody else had already ordered their food. And when the waitress said, you know, "What do you want? What are you going to have?" he pointed to me and said, "I'll have what she's having." And he had no idea what I was doing. And he always would do that, which I found fascinating, because I'm the type of person that goes to a restaurant and finds my dish, and then that's what I stick with.
Exactly. That's exactly what I remember, Gail. He would try something different every single time we went. I would get the same thing, because that's what I still do. I find it's like, okay, I mean, even though I went there all the time, I still had my favorite dishes there, and I would alternate between, you know, the Penang curry chicken and the pad thai shrimp or whatever. And Jim would get some. He would try to look for the most bizarre thing that he had never tried before, and he would get something different every single time.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense, because when we went out with him, he would get the same thing every time.
Really?
Without fail. We go to Outback, you get the Queensland chicken and shrimp. We go to Tortilla Factory, you get the tostadas de jefe. Like it was, I mean, even at Amphora, like he switched up a little bit, but for the most part, he get the Western omelet. Like that was the thing. It's so weird hearing that he just got whatever he felt like that day. That's so strange.
He did that all the time, because he came down and worked in Dallas for a while. And anytime any of the supervisors came down from Dallas, they shared my office. So I can attest that he was very messy, even in my office. Always had coffee cups, none of which were mine, because I'm not a coffee drinker. So that was true too, Mary. And what he told me about you is that he loved you and wanted to marry you from the first time he saw you, but you always had a boyfriend. And so as soon as he heard that you had broken up with that boyfriend, he asked you to marry him. That's what he told me
Saw the
about.
opening.
Yeah. He saw an opening there. But I wrote, and Susan, if y'all remember Susan, we both wrote a Digitex theory, which was so incredibly complicated and stupid the way wrote.
Me too.
And you did Digitex too?
Oh yeah.
And after working with him for a little bit, and he saw how I wrote things, he told, I don't know if he told Darlene or Karen or who, but anybody that could possibly pass a state test writing Digitex, we need to hire them. Because they've got to be fantastically fast writers to be able to do that. So he hated my theory. And we talked about theory a lot, but mostly my friendship with Jim consisted of reading, and we had very, very similar tastes in what we read. And he would email me at least once a month, "What are you reading?" and we would talk and discuss books and exchange books back and forth. And still, even just recently, I read a book and I was like, Jim would love this book. I would love to talk to him about this book. So I really miss Jim and sharing those. And he always had very wise counsel. My kids are just a little bit younger. And being a very young parent and not as experienced in life, I got a really, good advice and sound advice always from Jim in every area of my life. But my very, very favorite thing about Jim was his curiosity.
Oh yeah.
He was so curious, and he never looked down on anybody. And if you had an opinion that was different than his, he was very interested. Really, why do you have that opinion? And talk to me about that, and maybe I'll change my mind. He was not set in his ways.
Yeah.
Right.
He was not judgmental in any way. He was very open to learning and curious his whole life. And I aspire to be like him. He's one of my favorite people I've ever met. No one will ever be like him. And, he was a great, great man, and I miss him. And I feel very blessed to have had a long friendship with him. He's very special. And before he went in for his last surgery, I think he was afraid he wasn't going to be able to speak anymore. And he called me and he said, I just wanted to thank you for being my friend.
Aww.
So special to me that he did that.
So sweet.
Yeah. Sweet, sweet man.
But yeah, he always had the most amazing insights on, I mean, we could, oh, sorry, go ahead.
He just loved his
I
family.
was just going to say, Mary, I don't know.
Steve, you're
Mary,
going
I
in
don't
and
know if
out.
you remember, but you and I didn't meet for a very long time.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Is that better?
Yes.
Yeah.
Why don't I'll pause and now it's okay. I was just gonna say, Mary, I don't know if you remember, but you and I did not meet until probably 2 years ago.
Yeah.
But then that he would talk about you. And so then I started referring to you as, oh, your wife. So you were always in air quotes. And so one day to prove that you existed, he brought in a photograph in a frame. And I just looked at it and that's the photograph that came with the frame. I still don't believe it until I was actually,
I remember that.
until I actually met you, that I believed you were real.
I know. I really thought he was married to Sandy when I first came.
Well, thank God for Sandy, because she kept him, I think, organized,
Oh yeah.
It's like, whoa.
They definitely had different organizations.
Al, there went your chance to get away.
No, the thing with Jim, he always had my back and I always had his.
Yeah.
So it's like, even Sandy might say something about me at work and he would always, no, Al's right. And when she came home, it's like, no, Jim is,
Jim took your side.
Yeah. So, he always had my back. I appreciated that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Karen, you probably said the word. I think it was one of his favorite words, and it really kind of depicted him. You talked about him being bizarre. Yeah. I think that was like one of his all-time favorite words.
Yeah.
And I mean, he, in a way, he was bizarre because he was so eclectic in his interests, in his tastes, in his knowledge, in his feelings. And I don't know if, people understand how much percolated in him. He was always amazing me. It's like, and he loved to read. I mean, God, that was a passion he always had.
And how valuable that was in the captioning world. I mean, he could be doing a segment on anything under the sun and he would know about it. He could talk more about it. He knew all the vocabulary. But he knew something about it. It's like you couldn't hardly bring up a topic ever that he didn't know stuff about.
Yeah. Well, it's funny when we'd been here a couple of years and our neighborhood decided to have a gourmet club. So once a month we would, whoever was hosting it would pick the theme of whatever dinner, whatever having, blah, blah, blah. And we started playing Trivial Pursuit because it had just come out. So it was like, it got to the point, it's like everybody wanted to be on Jim's team.
Of
Because
course.
Oh, yeah, no kidding.
whatever Jim's team was, they always won. And, you know, you'd sit there and you'd finally put the buzzer on going, okay. And darn if at the very bitter end, he didn't come up with the answer. I think he knew it the whole time. He was just
Yeah.
waiting to the very end. You know,
Right.
we used to play Facts and Five. We stopped playing it because we couldn't come anywhere near what he knew.
Mhm.
You know, even Boggle, we stopped playing.
Right.
It's like,
When we worked on the house together, and sometimes we'd have the late nights. So if we were in a recess or whatever, we'd have Jeopardy on, and
He must have known everything.
Karen Stottle and I would be against him, and we would cheat. We would just yell out answers to anything, and he could beat us with his brain time behind his back. Like it was a joke, but we tried.
it's like that.
When
But
I was
you
in
know, you
college,
guys said he had common sense. It's like, really? Is that the same person I married to? It's like, I still remember one time, I was going on a field trip. I was in 5th grade classroom and we were going over to Claude Moore Farm. And I thought, oh man, it's kind of chilly. And he happened to be home that morning. And I called him and I said, could you bring me a sweatshirt? I said, it's in the second drawer, it's the top one. So eventually he came down and he brought me this. And I said, where's the sweatshirt? I can't find it. I said, did you look? He said, yeah. So I came home that day. I opened the drawer and there it was.
Of course.
I already told him. So I was like, I'm kind of at odds here with you saying he has common sense.
It's a guy thing.
Maybe he used it up at work. You know, one thing he always said that was funny too is his goal in life was to become a curmudgeon.
But he did always have really good advice. I mean, I remember one day coming in and just railing to him about something that Melissa had done. And, you know, he would just calm me down every time. First of all, Sally and Melissa were like exactly the same age. And he would always point out that he was surrounded by women at home. And he knew exactly, you know, he knew that I shouldn't get too rattled by whatever it was she was doing. But he did. He always had really great advice, and they were, you know, fun conversations. And
Karen, you just like blew my mind a little bit because I'm looking at all these people and I'm like, okay, I haven't met everybody, or maybe I have and I don't know. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
but,
I'm Melissa's mom.
I know. It's like as soon as she said that, I'm like, Karen Finkelstein.
Girl Scouts, camping.
Not Finkelstein anymore, but yes.
Yeah, so that's how I knew you when I was little, you know.
Right,
So I was like,
exactly.
Karen, I don't know who is this. She's got all these stories.
Yeah, no, I remember Marianne when Sally and Melissa went to Girl Scout camp with you, and
that was great. Loved it.
Yep.
I haven't heard Mark's story. Mark, you have to tell us some Jim stories.
The only things I remember a lot about Jim, but I remember I was his boss for a while. I think I was everybody's boss for a while. But anyway, when you're there long enough, that kind of happens. And I remember, you know, regardless of what I needed him to do, he would do it. There was never any problem about this and that. And if there was anything that was needed in terms of making up a system, a new way to do things, or a way to deal with a problem or something, he would accomplish that and accomplish it in writing. And the thing he would give me would be gorgeous. I mean, it wouldn't just be a description, it would be a chart, and it would be in color, and it'd be all worked out, and everything had a key to something else. You know, it worked just fine. The one thing that I never understood about him, and maybe the sweatshirt fits in with this, is he had at least 2 pairs of glasses. One was, I think, for reading the computer, and one was for, I don't know if it was general reading or distance or whatever it was. They were the same. The frames were the same. I have no idea how he was able to deal with that. And he was going back and forth and back. How did you know which is which? I guess once they got on, you knew. But,
That is great.
Wow.
Sandy, how about when you guys were at the Senate? Any stories from there?
Let me think. Sometimes I can remember one we were having a really late night and Joellen was in my office talking to me, and we looked through and we could see him taking a little cat nap there in his chair. And so we thought we'd be funny, and we took a picture of him and then we blew it up and put it on his window of him. And to sort of touch my heart, like about a week before he was diagnosed with the brain tumor and left, and then didn't end up coming back, he had made this real elaborate sign, because we shared offices and a window, like, so our window between us. He made this elaborate sign and said, "I have decided that you may take my turn." And so I've sort of just kept that as a like,
oh, neat.
Nice.
Because I ended up being the director, and it's not something I ever wanted. If he had been there, he would be the director in a heartbeat, and I'd be thrilled with it. So I sort of have kept that little sign. It's in my drawer, and I thought, okay, I'm taking his turn.
No.
Yep.
In mind how he would handle things and not get too worked up over some of the stuff.
Right.
And also he loved being in the Capitol, and he loved the history of it. And
Yeah.
I'd go out with him on smoke breaks, and he would point out to me every tree, what the name of it is. I mean, and he could do that every day for months, and I still wouldn't be able to tell you what kind of tree it was. But he just loved all that stuff. Or we'd talk about the plants that were in bloom, or just, there was always something to talk about.
Well, you know, one of the things that he loved that he was just so excited about when he got to do that tour, you know, those little special tours.
Yeah,
up to go all the way up into the Capitol Dome and outside. And actually the picture that we had at his celebration was from that day when he was waving, and it's like, oh my God, that is such a Jim look, you know?
Yeah.
Right.
But he talked about nothing but that. He was so excited that he was able to do that.
He also liked that we could get books from the Library of Congress, any book that we want.
Nice.
And they'll deliver it to us so we could read it. So, I mean, you can imagine Jim.
Wow.
You know,
Right.
He would get some really bizarre books and real thick, and then he would keep track of any unusual words that came up and send a word list to the rest of us about once a month with all these words that had come up in his reading. And, you know, so we could all just learn. But then something that's not so cerebral, at one point he came into work and he said, "I've decided that I'm curious why these romance novels, everybody thinks it's great."
Oh, I remember that phase.
Okay, so he wanted to read a romance novel, right?
Yeah.
And so the criteria for deciding which one was the cover had to either have somebody in a passionate embrace, or the man had to be shirtless. And he found one that they were in a passionate embrace and the man was shirtless.
Oh, wow.
So that's the one he read. And then when he got done, I said, "What did you think?" He said, "I'm not a fan." It's
Well,
not.
he made me read the same book at the same time. So
Oh, really?
I remember that phase. Yeah. I remember talking about that, and he was like, "Do you read romance novels?" I was like, "No, I don't read romance novels." And he told me, you know, "Well, I'm curious. I want to know they're the bestsellers." And so this is the one we're going to read, and you have to read it because I want to talk about it. So, okay.
It's romance novel book club.
Did he ever write one? It sounds to me like he's the kind of guy who would read them
Right.
all and then decide, now I'm going to write one. So
Yeah.
That
you
would be
should
another
look.
theory.
He
Yeah.
probably could have if he had made up his mind, and it would have been great, I'm sure. Yeah.
He probably could have. I know the one thing his one big criteria for books a lot of the time was it had to be 1,000 pages or more.
Oh,
Yeah.
Wow.
The bigger, the better. He loved those kind of books.
Wow. Yeah.
And he did write one book. Now, if he wrote others, I don't know about it. I mean, besides his, you know, theory ones and everything. But we've been married, I don't know, 3 years. Yeah, 3 or 4. And he wrote a children's story.
Oh my gosh.
It was like a little Christmas story. And he used our cat, Caramel, and our dog, Beulah, as the main characters in that. And I still have it. And it was, at that time, it's all handwritten on the legal yellow paper.
Mhm.
And when we were dating, he wrote me sonnets.
Oh.
Yeah.
They were beautiful.
Yeah. So I still have those. I keep thinking I should try and do something with his little story, but it's like I don't have the heart to put it in any other format than the way he wrote it.
Right.
Another thing he loved was his animals. I know he always talked about Nana, and
Nana.
he loved it when he was able to start ordering groceries and just always stay home with Nana. He said his goal was to never leave the house again.
Oh, how cute.
When he would come to our house, he would always have a pocket full of dog treats.
Aw.
Oh, he loved your dogs. He loved your dogs. He thought they were great. But I
They
mean,
loved him.
I don't know if you guys, you probably all saw pictures of Nana. She was like the weirdest dog on the face of the earth. And, I mean, periodically throughout their life, the kids are going, can we get a dog? No. 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 We don't have a fence. Can we get a dog? No. And finally, I don't know, how old were you, Sally, at the time? I don't even remember.
16.
Huh? 16?
16.
Yeah. One day, I don't know which one of them said, can't we get a dog? And I went, I don't care. Well, that was
I
it.
remember it perfectly. I remember it like it was yesterday. Dad and I were at the kitchen table and you were at the cooking something at the stove. And I said, Mom, can we please get a dog? Not expecting anything because I had gone 16 years hearing no. And you went, I don't care, whatever. And Dad and I just stopped and looked at each other like, did you hear it? I heard it. Did you hear it? That was it.
Yeah. And they did all this research, and Jim kept coming back to Nana, and her real name was Baby. And then we went to 3 places, I think, and the third place we went to, who was there? Nana. So it's like, I guess it was destined that we should bring her home. And I mean, he adored her. She adored him. It was the match made in heaven.
She is the best dog. When we walked up to her, when I saw her in person the first time, one of my friends was with us when we were there. And I turned to my friend and I said, that is the ugliest dog I've ever seen. But she was so sweet. You just could not help but love Nana. She was perfect. She was perfect. And she was so good for my dad. They were like on the same level of activity in terms of not wanting to do activities.
Yeah, I was always surprised when Jim actually, he would go out and go for walks. I'm going, you're going for a walk? And I mean, even if it might be lightly snowing, he'd go out. You're going for a walk? I was like, this is the man who loved the couch, and stuff like that. But it was great.
And he taught her so many tricks too. A lot of tricks I didn't think that she could do with her teeny tiny little legs, but he did it.
Yeah.
Is this one of the twins?
Well, they're actually not twins.
They're not twins.
No, the boys are 6 weeks apart. The other one is my brother's.
Oh, okay.
They're just super, super close in age. This is
Oliver.
Hi,
Oliver.
Hi, Oliver.
He had his 4th birthday at Disney World.
Wow. Sally, how old is he now?
He's 4.
Time flies. I remember when they were born, how exciting it was for the 2 grandsons to be born so close together.
Yeah, that was really fun.
I held my breath through that pregnancy. I was very concerned, obviously, when not knowing how things were going to go, but they got a lot of time together, and Ollie knows all about Gramps, and that's very, very precious to me.
Oh, that's sweet. Keep the memory alive. Exactly.
Gosh.
And look at that dimple.
So adorable.
Talking about you.
And you and Trevor live pretty close together, right?
Yeah, we're like 25 minutes apart.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So nice for the
see each
boys.
other. Well, his work schedule is weird, but the boys get together like every weekend, usually at least once.
Nice.
Mary, when are you're moving down there, right?
Yeah, I move out of my house on Wednesday, and I go to closing on Friday. And the house right now, they're saying is supposed to be ready around April 15th. So I'll be spending time with my kids for about a month.
Getting a roommate.
Yeah.
Think you'll be able to be involved in theater down there?
I have no idea. You know, with COVID, it's hard to say. I've been lucky enough. I just finished a show at Reston with Reston Community Players, and it was a great show. We did a 2-person show, and it was nice. It was just done digitally, so it's the first time I was really involved in the process of like, you know, like doing a taping like you would for TV or something like that, and then it's going to go live like mid-March, I think around March 13th or something. So that was kind of fun. And then I'm also working at another little theater in Ashburn, Stagecoach Theater Company, and they're actually doing a children's show, something different that I started back with Eldon Street Players in 1994.
Wow.
And so
Wow.
I was very excited that that's come back, because we did that for many years at Eldon Street. I mean, it's an original, the director, she wrote original scripts, and to see it come back again, I was really, really excited. So I feel like, you know, I'm going out on a high with my theater. So whether I do it again, who knows, you know?
I've already done research for you, Mom. I've already looked into local theater.
That's great.
I felt like I knew you so well, Mary, because Jim always talked about your theater
Exactly.
Yeah. Right.
productions, and I mean, we didn't meet either until very late in the game, and but I felt like I knew you because he was so proud of that and so proud of you, and he loved that you did that. And
Yeah, I liked it. It's kind of fun. It's like, you know, I was a theater major, and it's kind of fun to like, oh yeah, I'm actually putting my experience to work. And I had no idea when I first, it's funny because I guess it was 1993. For some stupid reason, 20 years later, I thought I'm going to go audition for the show. Well, it was a horrible audition. I didn't get cast, and I thought they would have been stupid if they'd even considered me. But the director called, or it wasn't the director, I guess it was somebody who was on the board, called and said, you know, they were very sweet, and they talked to me about it. And I went, yeah, I know, I suck. And so the next show, they said, well, would you like to work on it? And so I said, sure. And I came in as an assistant stage manager, and that was it. You know, so
Wow.
like what, 93, 2003, almost, I guess, 30 years of doing community theater in the area. So, and it's been a lot of fun. I've enjoyed it. Met a lot of, you know, great people and stuff like that. Most of it backstage. Sometimes I was on stage, but for the most part, I enjoyed the backstage. Got Sally involved with it for a while.
Lighting, right, Sally? Did you do the lighting?
I started doing lighting and backstage work, and then eventually I started stage managing like my mom.
Wow.
And then I went to VCU originally to be a theater major. I was accepted into their stage management program, and I did one show with them and went, I don't want to do this as a living. Like, as a hobby, it was awesome and I loved it. But I realized very, very quickly, like, this is just not what I want to do professionally. It sort of sucked all the fun out of it when it got to that level of things. But yeah, I loved it. It was great. Really good community too. Also, I was going to tell you earlier, Mom, you were talking about how Dad kind of just knew something about everything. And one time in college, we were playing this game, and a question came up in it: why you never see baby pigeons. And my hold on, sorry.
Wow.
That's a big dog.
He's not even that big. He just sounds big. Anyway, all my friends knew that if you had a question, they could call me and I would call my dad. And so they were all like, oh, let's call your dad. Let's find out. And so we call him. And of course he knew why you never saw baby pigeons, because by the time they leave the nest, they don't look like babies anymore. And 2 days ago, one of my friends from college messaged me this silly video that she had seen online, that somebody made a song about why don't you ever see baby pigeons. Like, super annoyed about it, and she messaged it to me and was like, thanks, Mr. Hall.
That's great.
He was smart.
Oh.
Well, I am sort of the party crasher here because you guys have been working together forever and ever and ever. But the impact and the association that I had with Jim is that I was made the deputy chief of the reporters at the House of Representatives. And I was nervous. I had only been at the House for about 5 years and I was concerned. And on the first week that I was on my job, my boss came in the office and he says, "How's it going?" I said, "Well, I'm still trying to figure it all out, but my major responsibility was hiring people, training people, scheduling people. And I can do that, right?" And he goes, "Oh, by the way, we've decided we're going to make you contracting officer for the captioning contract." And I said, "What is I don't know. What is a contracting officer?" Right? He said, "Well, you're responsible for the contract. If anything screws up, it's your fault. Make sure that everything goes well. We'll send you to training. You take a class. You're liable." And I was terrified. And I came home and I'm going, "What's a contract?" I didn't even know what I was a court reporter. I didn't know what a contracting officer was. So I knew Darlene. I had known Darlene for 10 years, I guess, by that point. And we talked about it and you said, "Oh, you're going to work with Jim. It's going to be fine. Everything will be fine." And he became my liaison with NCI. And this was so long ago that I remember we got a monthly report from him and I would come to work and the fax machine would go pages and pages and pages, more detailed than you could imagine. And I think it was Teresa was talking, somebody was talking about the reviews.
So
all those reviews would be coming over, he was sending me all this information. So that's how I got to know Jim, is we sort of worked together until he left NCI, I guess. He was wasn't he, Darlene, our contact until he left NCI?
He was, yeah, 2006.
Yeah. And after he left, he came to talk to me. It's like, now, I'm in a new phase of my life. Let's talk about this. And we talked a little bit about whether he would like to come work for us. And he walked out the door. I said, "Well, let's talk about this." And like a week later, he got a job at the Senate, so we missed that opportunity. But, when I was thinking about this and I'm thinking, what are my memories of him? And the first thing I said is he was so funny. And now I've just listened to you guys who knew him way better than I did, some of whom married him. But I just remember thinking, this is a nice, easy, buttered route into this new job of mine, because he was so funny and so calm. That's the other word I wrote down.
Calm, yeah.
So calm about everything. And I have a tendency to operate right up here at all times in sort of a jittery kind of way. But he could deal with the highest stress levels and all the people management. I mean, come on, you guys. It's the people that drive you crazy, right?
Jim said being a supervisor wouldn't be so bad if it weren't for all the damn people.
Right. Thank you. Thank you. And anyway, so he was a calming, reassuring, reliable person to work with and learn a new responsibility. He made it possible for me to, and then we had to go through the whole re-up contract thing, the rebidding of the RFP and all that kind of stuff. And I'm going, oh my God. Well, the whole process works to my benefit because it stayed with NCI and I didn't have to do it all over again with it. So he was just a delight. And it was always, I think, Darlene, and when you had your 50th birthday party, the big bash, and you were, I think we sat at the table together, and that was when I got the funny Jim, because we were always in this business kind of communication, but you put him at a a party and the funny came out. So
Oh
I
my
believe
God.
I believe he was wearing that Hershey's Kiss hat, actually.
Joe, one thing you reminded me of is Jim and Steve decided they didn't want to stay at NCI after Karen and I were shown the door. And one of the most wonderful lines Steve has ever told me, and I just have this vision of it, is he said, I said to Jim, we're going to walk out the door arm in arm like Laverne and Shirley.
in that hat, Steve. In that
That's right.
and I just have to say, because we were talking about the Library of Congress and the books, the stacks and stacks of books, when I was pondering retirement, I retired 5 years ago, my husband said, can you still get the books from the library? No, it's not like Social Security that goes with you. You know? He goes, we might want to talk about this. It was, I literally, you would, if you wanted 12 books, they would bring you 12 books, and then
Wow.
and Tom was going through them like this. He goes, we might need to talk about that.
That's fun. I love that.
What a nice perk.
Oh, that's great.
So anyway, I appreciate you letting me be a party crasher. And my other association with Darlene, you realize it was 30 years ago that
Yes.
Darlene, I was a baby right out of school court reporter who got a captioning job. I didn't have a clue, and they sent me to NCI. I met the Trinity, Tammy, Karen, Darlene, and you guys, Darlene, put me on air and patted me and sent me back to Texas. I was in El Paso, Gail, doing a local TV show there. And I think one of the reasons I ended up in DC is because of you, Darlene, is because I knew I couldn't stay in El Paso for the rest of my career, and I was looking for something, and I had a job offer in Washington. And I called Darlene. You're the first person I called, and I said, how can two adult people with a mortgage live in the DC area? And she convinced me that we could, so we figured it all out. But,
And the rest
Did we
is
make-
history. And look what trailblazing things you did.
Yeah.
And it was amazing that you were on the air so soon out of school. Well, Joe has an incredible background story of having been a travel agency owner.
in
Then
1988, I owned a travel agency, and in 1990, I went on the air captioning.
Wow.
it was like what?
So Joe, did we make you write for the panel?
Well, I don't think so. I
no, we didn't do that to people that
We didn't
weren't
do that.
employees, because he was
Oh, that's true.
he came to us through, it was Brandon Raspberry, was that his name?
Raspberry, yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because
Raspberry.
the first two people he picked out for us did not cut it. And then
Yeah.
somehow he was lucky enough to find you, Joe. And then, yeah, I remember coming to El Paso when you went on the air.
Yeah, but
Jack, did you tell your story? I haven't heard from Jack.
Yeah, I was talking earlier about how Jim and I both
Oh,
went
yeah,
on
the
computer
nights.
about the
Yeah.
same time. Yeah,
Go way back.
yeah.
Jack is the original.
Yeah, because you have a double dip with Jim. You had him before NCI.
Yeah, the way I got to be involved in captioning was a result of 9/11, and we had a court reporting business. Gail and I did, and once 9/11 hit, she was quite paranoid of my going downtown. She had this vision of my being caught under the Potomac and being bombed or something. So we began to look to be able to move, and that Christmas of 2001, I got a regular Christmas card letter from Jim. Gail and I were, it was about 3 days after Christmas, and we were reading it, and I looked at her and I said, do you suppose I should give Jim a call and talk to him about captioning? And she said, yes. And so I called Jim, and we hadn't talked for a while because when he first became a captioner, he was doing depositions on days off and things. Then he got so busy that he no longer could do it. So then we weren't in touch maybe for a few years. And so anyway, I called him that morning and we got to talking, and I asked him about it. I said, do you think I could do this job? And he said, because he knew what I was like. And he said he definitely thought of anybody that he knew that wasn't involved in it that could do it, that I could. And so within probably a week or so, I come over and I was sitting in a room with Darlene and Karen.
Panel.
And the next thing I knew, I was purchasing a writer and getting a computer, and Jim came over and helped me set it up. And then I took the next 3 months just not working and just rewrite, just changing my things. So I had, I had a lot of contract work, medical work, and I had a contract at Goddard. So I had all these areas where I had a lot of depth in one area, and I had to change my thing to where I had depth in 3 or 4 places, but then I had like 2 inches of depth in a whole lot of places by the time I started. And first thing I did was like July the 8th of 2002, I covered an 11 o'clock hour of WJLA. And then I started doing that. And then I started on my own, just practicing other things like Bloomberg. And all of a sudden, in the fall, I volunteered and got another hour here or 2. And so I built up. And so that gave us, I was doing enough to where we knew we could sell our home. And we moved back down to where I grew up in Spartanburg, South Carolina. So, but I came on, and then I trained with Steve, and the rest of it's history. It's just the way it got going. Yeah.
We're so lucky that Jack ended up being an employee and one of our supervisors. So I have Jim to thank for that.
So anyway, yeah, he was. I saw him when he first came from California, because I was working with Ron Johnson. Yeah. I'd been there for about 3 years. And I remember Ron telling me that there was a fella coming from California. And one morning, I believe it was the morning that Diana and Charles got married. And we got up about 3:30 in the morning because Gail wanted to watch it. And so daybreak came. Daybreak came, and I got up and I was jogging, and I met Jim on a road that passed from one area over towards where he was living, because I would jog 2 or 3 miles, and there he came along, and he had this, seemed like he had a little red Mercury vehicle that was sort of like the same as my Ford vehicle. And anyway, he stopped. And we talked in the street on this dirt road, probably a half an hour or so. And then I jogged back home, and he went home, and we just had, and then when we got the computers together, we really had a lot to talk about. And like I say, we spent a lot of time together working our way through those computers and the big floppy disks,
Yeah, I'm so amazed you guys were such pioneers, and to put out that money on your own to do that was really admirable. Whereas I was so lucky that NCI was in my backyard, and there it was. So I really admire what you guys did back in the day.
We were being told at the time by people that, this isn't a good idea. And Ron Johnson flatly didn't want us going on them, because he didn't think they were good things to do. And
you guys were the visionaries. He wasn't.
And we just did it. Jim got his, I think, somewhere in around January, and I got mine about 3 months later, March or April, something like that. So we were just learning together as we were going. And it's like, it was really beneficial that we wrote so much alike. And I was just telling someone about stenography and about how you can become, if your mind is like that, very creative with learning to brief things, and because your mind's eye can see how something's supposed to be written. So it's just not, just willy-nilly that you pick something. But it used to be fun with sitting with Jim and talking, because we both thought the same way. Why write something and then multiple strokes. If you could do it in one stroke or 7 syllable word, you definitely don't want to be stroking things out and stuff. But it was a wonderful experience, absolutely great experience. And we had our own really fun laughs and stuff too when we would be doing work, and we drank a whole lot of coffee and stuff like that.
Oh, the coffee. Yeah, all day long.
So, he was a wonderful guy. He really was. Great guy.
I scheduled this meeting for 2 hours, and it doesn't mean we have to stop right now, but if for some reason we get cut off, I just want everybody to be aware of that.
If it's okay, I'm going to need to go because we have a dinner date at 5 o'clock. So
Good to see you, Jack.
Yeah,
Oh my
good to see you.
gosh.
Nice
Yeah.
to see you, Jack. Yeah.
Great to see you, Jack.
Yeah.
Take care, Jack.
Nice talking with everybody. Bye.
Bye.
I actually need to get going too because my hip can only sit for so long.
Oh.
I've been
So good
standing
to
up
see
and
you,
moving
Karen.
around, but I need to go put my feet up. And anyway, it's just been so fabulous to see you guys. And
Yeah, thank you.
I
Glad you
can't
were able to make
wait
it.
until I can get out there again, and it would be so fun to see everybody in person again. So hopefully one of these days.
You're in Wisconsin?
Yeah, I'm in Madison.
Okay. Yeah.
It's been like 12. This August will be 13 years, I think. Sandy, you came out right after I moved here.
Right.
I just came across pictures of us at the farmers market from when I first moved here.
Wow.
But
Is Melissa
yeah.
still there?
Huh?
Is Melissa?
Yes,
there?
she is. Yep. She told me when we would come and visit my folks in northern Wisconsin, for years, Melissa said, I love coming to visit Grandma and Grandpa, but why do people move here? It's so freaking cold. And now she loves going snowshoeing but she's in Hilton Head right now because she loves to get out of the snow. And also now because her office is, everybody's still working remotely, so she can be wherever she wants.
Nice.
So
Nice.
anyway, but she loves being in Madison now. She's totally in love with Madison. So that's been great. And so great that she could be here. My mom passed away in November, and it was so great that for the last 7 years, almost 8 years, I guess it was 8 years that Melissa's been here, so she could have lots of happy hours and Sunday Bloody Mary brunches with her grandma and stuff like that. So it's been really awesome that she's here too, for me. So
That's cool.
anyway,
So good to see
awesome
you.
to see all you guys. Can't wait till I can see you in person.
Yes, I'm glad your
And,
recovery's going well. Good luck with that.
Yes, definitely.
Yep. Thanks. We'll see you guys later.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Oh,
Karen, good luck with
Darlene,
the
this was so nice of you to set up. This is really good. I'm sorry my other two couldn't have joined in.
Hopefully the recording will work and I can send it to you.
Yeah, that'll be nice because I
Not
think
the best one of the three. There's nothing that compares.
Now you
that's a
are.
favorite.
Yeah. And we had Molly for a bit. I know she was busy with the kids' soccer, but you're very welcome. I really wanted to have this in person last year, but as we all know, COVID got in the way. But then once I realized, Mary, you were moving away, I go, let's just do it via Zoom.
Yeah. Well, thank
So I'm
you.
so glad we were able to. Oh, you're
Thank you
welcome.
for
And
putting
thank you,
this
everybody
together. It
else
was
for
really
attending.
nice.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Darlene, for doing
welcome.
it. Good luck, Mary.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks,
And
Star.
You're
I hope
welcome.
everything goes well with you guys and things kind of get back to, I guess, the new normal that we'll
Whatever
probably
that
have
is.
from all of this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know.
Mary, we just want you to know if you've been able to tell how we all just adored Jim for
Yeah.
so many years in so many different ways. And we just want you to know how special he was to all of us.
Well, it's kind of nice because it's like, I'm prejudiced. I always felt that way. But, on the other hand, too, I always knew it was kind of like weird. And it's like, it's kind of nice to know that you guys took that all into account. And it's like, that was all part of
Like,
it.
like Teresa would say, and he said to her, it's part of his charm.
Yeah. So thank you. And I wish you guys all the best. And thank you for putting this together. It was really wonderful.
You're welcome. And same to you. Good luck to you. And I'm so glad you'll be near your children. And Sally, I'm so glad you could join. And your son is adorable.
Thanks.
Bye, Oliver.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye, Oliver. Bye, everybody.
Guys.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Okay, I tried to record this and I'm hoping it's working. So can you help me before I get out of the meeting? I was going to leave the meeting, but I didn't know if I needed to do something else. So,
Mute your camera.
I'm the only one in the meeting now. Okay, so I hit the record at the bottom. And it said record to this computer, record to the cloud. I recorded to the computer because I didn't know where it would go in the cloud. Thank you. I need these back. Anything from you before I walk away?
You recorded to the laptop, not the cloud.
Correct. Not good.
I don't know. We'll see.